All right, let's start with what is Salesforce Flows. If you haven't had a chance to look at Flows yet, Salesforce Flows is a tool to build automation and custom UI in Salesforce. You can automate business processes using Flows. It's a declarative tool that does not require any coding skills. And you might be aware that now the sun is setting on workflow rules and process builder. Flows is now the present and future of automation in Salesforce. With Winter 23 release, Salesforce no longer allows you to create new workflow rules. And in subsequent releases, it will also disable the option to use process builder for new automations. So Flows is the way to go. Flow is not new to Salesforce. It has been a part of the platform since 2012 and has gone through different rounds of evolution. Previously, it was known as Visual Workflow, then Lightning Flow, and the tool to build Flow was known as Cloud Flow Designer, Lightning Flow Designer, etc. But now, it is just called Salesforce Flows and is built using Flow Builder. Now, there are 5 different types of flows that Salesforce currently offers. So the first one is called a screen flow, which is to create a custom user interface and guide users through a series of steps to complete a task. For example, you can build a flow to allow users to enter the account information first, then take them to the next screen, enter the contact information, take them to the third screen, enter the case information, and then create all those records in one go. Then we have record triggered flows, which is launched when a record is created, updated, or deleted. If you have used workflow rules, process builder, or Apex triggers, then that is what can now be done using flows. We have scheduled triggered flow. If you want to run automations at predefined interval, you can use scheduled triggered flow for that. If you are a developer or have any development background in Salesforce, traditionally, we have used scheduled Apex jobs to meet such requirements. The fourth one will be a platform event triggered flow. This flow launches when a platform event message is received. If you're not familiar with platform events yet, just think of it as a custom object, but it is used to integrate Salesforce with external systems like Oracle, SAP, Microsoft, etc. And then we have an auto launch flow. This flow is slightly different and is very useful. The 4 flows that we saw earlier are triggered by some specific events. For example, screen flow is triggered by the user. Record triggered flow gets triggered when records are created, updated, or deleted. Scheduled triggered flow runs at a predefined schedule. And platform event triggered flow gets triggered when platform events are received. Now, auto launch flow is a flow that you can call from any of these flows. So let's say that you need to do some common task from a screen flow and from a record triggered flow. What you can do is you can create one auto launch flow and call that from your screen flow as well as from the record triggered flow. So auto launch flow will allow you to take a modular approach where you define the process once and then call it from different places, which can be quite useful. I think of flows as a Swiss Army knife. A Swiss Army knife has different tools for different purposes. Like it has scissors, it has a knife, it has bottle opener, etc. Similarly, you can use flows for different purposes in different situations. For example, you can use it in place of workflow rules, process builders, and Apex triggers to run automations when the record gets created, updated, or deleted. In some cases, you can use it in place of Apex classes. You can use it in place of Apex scheduled jobs to run automations at predefined interval. Or you may want to use it in place of Visualforce page, Aura components, or Lightning web components to build custom user interface. Now, it is important to highlight here is that I am not saying that flows can completely replace all these components. That will absolutely not be true. But chances are that wherever you have used these other components to meet your low to medium complexity requirements, flows can be a viable and a better option. Let's take a look at some of the benefits of flows. So with flows, you can standardize automations rather than using different tools like workflow rules, process builders, or triggers. You can use flows. It can become a central source of all your automations, making it easier to develop, maintain, administer, and troubleshoot. With flows, you can reduce customization. It is a declarative point-and-click tool with rich set of UI and rich set of features. You will not need to write any code and you don't need to be a developer. Salesforce continues to enhance flows with every release. Tens of features are introduced in every release of Salesforce, making it more and more powerful. So you can leverage on those innovations by Salesforce. With flows, you can build once and reuse it multiple times from multiple places. For example, you build one flow and you can invoke it from a button, you can call it from other flows, you can call it from Apex, or you can even call it through an API call. Flows has the concept of flow versions. If you want to enhance an existing flow, you can create a new version, test it, and activate it only once you are fully satisfied with it. You don't need to worry about breaking anything in your production environment till you have fully tested it. And just in case if something goes wrong with the new version of the flow, you can immediately revert to the previous version and continue to fix your new version. So that's a good advantage of using flows. Then flows, there are pre-built flows available on App Exchange that caters to different business requirements and they are for different industries. These flows have been developed by Salesforce Labs as well as third parties. This means that if you have a very typical business requirement, you can go to App Exchange and see if there is something already there that meets your requirement. So rather than building a flow from scratch, you can use a pre-built one, thereby reducing the time and effort and increasing the speed to add value to your business. Another benefit of flows is that there is a concept of flow template, which means that if you have similar requirements, you can create this as a template and then use that template to create new flows. Now, this will basically speed up the process of creating flows as you don't need to create it from scratch all the time. So these are some of the benefits of using flows. Let's take a look at how to build flows. Here we are going to build a simple screen flow that will allow users to create a new account quickly and from the home page. So let me switch to my Salesforce org. This is my Salesforce org. I am currently on the home page, and what I intend to do is to add a form here using which the users will be able to create an account quickly. How do we build this flow? I'm going to go to Setup. We'll type flows in the quick find box. Click on flows. And I'm going to click on new flow. The flow builder is going to show me all the different types of flows that can be created. I'm going to go with screen flow and click on create. Now, when you're building a flow, there are two options to build the flow. You can build it using the auto layout mode or you can build it using the freeform mode. So I'm going to switch to freeform. And the moment I switch to freeform, you can see that there is a toolbox that gets displayed in the left sidebar. Now, when you are building a flow, there are different elements that you can create in a flow, and these elements are categorized under three sections mainly. We have interaction, we have logic, and we have data. Now, since we want to create a screen flow, first thing we'll do is to drag and drop the screen element from the left sidebar. So I'm going to click here, drag and drop it to the canvas. It is going to open a window for me to specify what do I want to add in this screen flow. So I'm going to provide the label. I'll call it as account form. The API name will get populated automatically. Now, if you look at the sidebar of the screen element, you are going to see a lot of predefined components that can be used in the form. These include components like text, text area, pick list, date time picker, radio button, and so on. So the first component that I'm going to add is to allow users to enter an account name. So I'm going to select the component type as text, click on this, and the text field will get added to my canvas. Now here I'm going to specify the label that will be displayed to the user. So let's call it account name, and the API name will populate automatically. I will make this field mandatory because account name is mandatory in Salesforce. And when I click on this checkbox required, you will notice a small red asterisk that gets displayed, indicating to the user that this field is mandatory. Now, the next field I want to add is of pick list type. So I'm going to search pick list, click on it, and a pick list field will get added to this canvas. I'm going to specify the label. So let's call it account industry. API name will get populated automatically. And now since it's a pick list field, I can specify whether users can select multiple options or just one option. So I just want to allow users to select one option. I'll go with let's user select multiple option as no. My component type will be pick list. I can choose to display it as radio button. I'll go with pick list. And since I am displaying this field as a pick list type, I need to specify what values should be displayed in this field. So I need to specify the choice. If I click on the choice field, I will select a new choice resource. Now I have a couple of options on how do I want to display the values in the pick list. But since I am creating a pick list on account industry, it will make sense to display the pick list values from the industry field on the account object itself. Industry is a standard field in the account object, and I'm going to get values from that pick list field. So I'm going to select my option as pick list choice set. Here I will need to specify an API name. So I will say account industry. Now I need to specify from which object do I want to get the pick list values. So the choice is obvious here. I want to get the pick list values from a field on the account object. I'm going to select account here. Now what is the data type? In your object, you may have pick list fields, you may have multi-select pick list fields. So since industry is a pick list field, I'm going to select pick list data type. And once I do that, then under field, Salesforce is going to show me all the fields from the account object. So I'm going to select industry. This is a standard field on the account object. I can choose to sort the options in the pick list, but I will just go with the default order of the field. Click on done. Let's keep it simple for now. I will just use these two fields in my form. Click on done. And I will go back to the flow builder. Now this is an element that I have added. So I will link this element with start element by clicking on this small circle here, dragging and dropping it onto the my screen element. What this will do is this will define the order in which the different elements in this flow will be executed. So since I have linked it with the start element, when the flow starts, the first thing it is going to do is to display a screen to the user. And let's save this flow so that we don't lose our work. So I will specify my flow label as simple account form. The API name will populate automatically, and I'll click on save. The flow gets saved. I can see here, this is my flow name and this is version 1. Now, once the users have entered the account name and industry, I want to create an account record. To do that, I'm going to drag and drop this create records element from the left sidebar and drop it onto the canvas. I need to specify the label for this element. So I will say create account record. And how many records do I want to create? So I will go with one. Since the users will be entering just one account information in the form. Now when I'm creating a record, I need to specify what should be the values of the, first of all, I need to specify what record should be created and what value should it be populated with. So I'm going to select the option use separate resources and literal values. This is because I want to create the record from the information that has been entered by the user. So I'm going to select use separate resources and literal values. I need to specify in which object should this record be created. That choice is obvious. I'll go with account object. And then I need to specify what should be the fields in the account object that should be populated. So my first field that I want to populate is the account name field. This is a field on the account object. And when I'm populating a field, I need to specify with what value should it be populated. So here I'm going to select under screen components, I'm going to select account name. This is the field in my screen form where users will be entering the account name. So that's what I'm going to select here. And the next field I want to populate is industry. So I will select industry field. It's a field in the account object. And the value will be, again, the account industry field. Now, one thing if you notice here is that as I am typing the characters in this field, the flow builder is showing me all the values that is matching with the characters that I'm typing. So in that sense, it makes this flow builder very, very intuitive. I just type certain characters of what I want to select. Flow builder will display me all the options that matches with my search string, and then I can select a value here. So name will be populated with account name, industry will be populated with account industry. These are the fields that has been entered by the user in the form or in the screen element that we built earlier. Click on done. My create records element gets displayed on the canvas. I'm going to link it to screen element. So the arrow here denotes the order in which this flow will be executed. When the flow starts, a form will be displayed, and once the user submits the form, a record will be created in the account object. That's all we want to do. Click on save. And then I'm going to activate this flow. This is required to make it available to the users. So click activate. Now, how do I expose this flow to the users? For a screen flow, there are various options in which you can expose this form to the user. Let me show you one option here. I'm going to go to account homepage, and let's say that I want to display this form in the right sidebar here. So for that, I'm going to click on this gear icon, click on edit page. It is going to open the lightning page builder, where it will show me all the different components in the left sidebar. I am going to search for flow, and there is a standard flow component here that I am going to drag and drop to wherever I want to display this form. So I'll drop it in the right sidebar. Now this is a flow component. I can specify which flow should be displayed here. And if you remember, I named my flow as a simple account form. So I'm going to select that. And that flow will now be displayed. Click on save. And then go back. Now back in my home page, this flow will be displayed. So let's just wait for it to come up. Now this is my account form. As you can see, it is displaying account name, which is mandatory, and account industry. So let's say my account name is saasguru. And the account industry, let's say I'll select technology. Now notice that all these pick list values is coming from the industry field on the account object. That is what we selected when we were creating this form. So I will select the industry as technology, click on next. And once the flow finishes, it will bring me back to the first screen. Now, since I have kept my flow simple, I am not displaying any confirmation screen, but I can do that if I want. How do I verify that the record has been created? So I'll go back. I'll go to Accounts tab. And you can see that there is an account that has been created for saasguru. If I open this record, go to details. Now the account name is saasguru and the industry is technology, because these are the only two fields that we added to our form. And that is what has been populated in this record. Now this is how simple it is to create a flow. Let's go back to this flow builder and take a look at the other elements. So I'm just going to give you a brief walkthrough so that you have a little better idea about the capabilities of the flow. Now there are three different sections: interaction, logic, and data. Under interaction, you can see screen element that allows you to build custom UI. This is what we used just now. If you choose action, with action, you will be able to execute various actions, like you can send email, you can post to chatter, you can submit records for approval. Under subflow, you can call another flow. So if you have built another screen flow or another auto launch flow, you can call that flow from this flow. That is what subflow will allow you to do. Under logic, you have assignment. This will allow you to assign values to variables using calculations or formulas. Decision element will allow you to take different routes. For example, the industry that we selected in our demo was technology. And let's say that if the industry is technology, you may want to display another form to the user with specific set of fields for the technology industry. Or if the user selects the industry as, let's say, manufacturing, you may want to display another set of screen with the fields that are more relevant for manufacturing. So that is what you can do using the decision element. And then loop element will allow you to process multiple records. For example, if you want to change the address of multiple contacts, you can use a loop and then change the address of multiple contacts. Then there are two more elements here: collection sort and collection filter, which are used for specific purposes. Under data, you can create record. This is what we used in this flow. You can update an existing record. If you want to display the value from a record, you can get records from the Salesforce database from any object that you want, and then you can display the values. Or if you want, you can delete records also. Now, if you're familiar with any programming language, you can relate all these options to programming concepts. In programming language, we have if, then, else conditions. So we have decision element here. In programming language, we use a do while loop. So there is a loop element here. And in programming language, we can create, update, or delete records. So there are corresponding elements here allowing you to do that. But with flows, a lot of these things can now be done without writing any code. You can just do it declaratively. Okay, that is how simple it is to use flows once you understand and have mastered the concepts. And I hope that this gives you some basic idea about flows in Salesforce. Now let's take a look at some of the use cases for flows. So where exactly you can use it in your business scenario. You can create or you can use a screen flow to show a single form to the user, allow them to enter account, contact, and case details. And when they submit the form, create records in 3 different objects and link them together. Now, presenting one single form to the user can increase their efficiency and productivity, because otherwise, if they use standard Salesforce features, they will need to go to account record first, create it, go to contact record, create it, go to case record and create it. But with flow, with screen flow, you can just present one single form, and this will probably reduce the time by, let's say, 1/3 than what it will take for them to use standard Salesforce features. So that's one use case where you can use flows. For record triggered flow, let's say that if the address of your account gets updated, you may want to update the address of all contacts. So a record triggered flow will be a good choice whenever the record gets updated, whenever the account record gets updated. The address of all the contacts can also be updated using flow. Schedule triggered flow will be a good choice to run some automation at a predefined interval, like let's say every morning at 6 a.m. And one of the use cases, if there are cases in your Salesforce org which is on waiting on customer status, you may want to close all those cases after 15 days or based on any business logic that you want. So run this flow, schedule this flow to run every morning at 6 a.m. and close those cases which are in waiting on customer status. Then you have the platform event triggered flow. So an example will be like, let's say if you are linking it to your ERP system, and when the order status gets updated in the ERP system, you may want to update the opportunity record. You may want to create a custom field in the opportunity record, call that order status. And whenever the status gets updated in ERP, you may want to update the status in the opportunity record. Platform event triggered flow will be a good option to do that. And then you can use auto launch flow when you want to update the number of open cases for an account from the 3 different places. Like let's say when you want to update the number of open cases through the click of a button, or whenever a case record gets created or updated, or you may even want to update it through an API call. So rather than building 3 different flows, create an auto launch flow and just call it from 3 different places. But Flows offers you much more. What we have done in this session, it is just scratching the surface. With Flows, now Salesforce has recently added the tools to migrate your workflow rules and process builder to Flows. So you can do that without having to write flows from scratch. Just migrate your existing automation. You can use flow templates to build similar flows. There is an option of pausing and resuming flows where, let's say, users can pause the flow. They have captured some input from their customer, but the customer does not have all the information. So you can pause the flow, and when the customer calls again, that flow can be resumed. The benefit of doing this is that whatever information that the customer provided earlier, you don't need to ask for that information again. All that will be there in the system when you pause the flow. So when the customer calls again, you can just continue from where you left off. If your flow runs into error, like when you are creating a record, updating a record, there could be errors because maybe like, let's say a validation rule fails, then you can handle errors with fault paths. You can notify your administrator. You can store those errors in custom objects. You can call Apex from Flows and Flows from Apex. So using this, it will allow you to leverage on both the declarative capabilities of Salesforce, and where those declarative capabilities fall short, you can use Apex for some advanced requirements. You can call flows from an API, and there are flow limits that you need to be aware of. And in Flow Builder, you also get an option to debug the flow without having to run it actually. So when you are debugging the flow, you can choose the option to roll back any records that you are creating so that it will not impact anything in your Salesforce org. And then in Flow, there is one of the features that has been added recently is you can test the flows automatically. Now, this can be a huge time saver so that your users don't need to test the flows automatically. Do note that this is available just for record triggered flows now, but it can significantly save the user's time. And it will also make your flows most robust and reliable because you don't have to rely on a person to test the flow. And there are many more features. So this is just to give you an idea about what those features are.